Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today for Monday, March 31st, where we saw indexes claw back after an early plunge. Still, it was a pretty ugly first quarter, all in all. Today marked the end of calendar Q1, and it could be a bumpy ride this week. So, today, volatile action in here to join me to break down all the news we need to know here from today's session is my colleague, Ken Shreve. Ken, fantastic as always to see you. What do you have for us today?
All right, very impressive recovery for the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 today. Let's talk about three stocks. Biotech stocks under a lot of pressure for most of the session. Many recovered off lows. Take a look at Gilead Sciences, GILD. Also in China, I want to take a look at Alibaba, BABA, and then a name that we haven't talked about in quite some time, RBA. This is a company formerly known as Ritchie Brothers. Now it's RB Global. They do car auctions and the like.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at those three stocks. But first, let's analyze the major indexes. A very interesting day today, Ken, where you did have the NASDAQ closing down just 0.1% after a sharply lower open. And we did undercut the previous lows from a couple of weeks ago, even undercutting 17,000 intraday, but managed to close well off lows as we look for a new rally attempt here for the major indexes. The S&P 500 up on the day by about 0.6%. A little bit of an undercut and turn there as well. The Dow up 1% on the day. So blue chips here leading the way to the upside, closing just above 42,000. I might add there. Small caps did finish lower, down about 0.6%, but well off lows as well. So it did seem like for a lot of the indexes, we got these undercuts, but then that brought us to, levels where perhaps dip buyers wanted to come in, or maybe shorts needed to cover. What do you make of today's session?
Yeah, I suspect we probably saw some short covering today. I'm not sure if it was kind of new money coming in from the sidelines that could signal a shift in market direction here. So probably at this stage of the game, some short covering alley. We did get a good shakeout, like you were talking about. That was a fairly sharp breach of the 17,000 level early in the session. Nasdaq was down 2.7% on an intraday basis. So to see it come all the way back to flat, this
Mhm.
is an example where even though a higher volume decline doesn't look great for the Nasdaq, the fact that we recovered all of those losses certainly tells you that buyers were around today. So I suspect that this will count as the first day of a rally attempt for the Nasdaq, because we got such a strong close near highs. But again, first day of a rally attempt here, market's going to have to prove itself more. Three straight sharp declines
Mhm.
before today. Market probably getting a little oversold, and maybe we got that little oversold bounce today. So we'll have to see what tomorrow brings. But I think
Mhm.
too early to declare victory for the bulls here.
Absolutely, especially because we have that big tariff deadline coming up on April 2nd. We keep hounding that, talking about it quite a bit, but it is important. It's been the predominant factor that traders have been trading off of over the last couple of months. The various headlines, concerns over that. So, will we get some sort of relief once the uncertainty is cleared up, or will there be more fear in the market in terms of perhaps prolonged implications of tariffs and passing on costs to the consumer, what it means for inflation? We'll just have to see come Wednesday.
Yeah, I think the bond market, just as much as the stock market, has been trading on these tariff headlines. We had a big plunge in that 10-year Treasury yield on Friday. It was down about 11 basis points or so, and then the 10-year yield, just like the stock market today, initially sold off. It put in a low just like the stock market did today. But yeah, I mean, listen, you've got the stock market and the bond market sort of worried in tandem about a slowdown for the economy. Is it going to come in the second half of the year? Is it going to be sharper than expected, or is it going to maybe will be able to put it off until the beginning of 2026. But typically, when you get distribution like this, that starts to appear in the indexes, and that's what happened when we had that pretty sharp 3-week decline for the S&P 500. Lots of institutional selling. So we will see, but just a lot of uncertainty. We could sell the news Wednesday. Maybe we could buy the news as well as the market
Mhm.
gets some much needed certainty over these tariffs. So you're right that Wednesday is going to be a big headline for the market. We'll take the first day of a rally attempt here because it was an impressive performance for the indexes today. Just again, a little too early to declare victory, like I said, for the bulls.
Right. So, from a technical perspective, best case scenario, we continue to see this momentum to the upside. That 200-day line remains a very key level that we are watching. We got rejected there last week for the S&P 500. So, as we see investors digest the tariff related headlines this week, hopefully we will get some more clarity, but it could be a bumpy ride.
Yeah, I mean, last week on Friday, we got that the latest reading from Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, which was a little hotter than expected. This week, we've got the reciprocal tariff news on Wednesday. We got a pretty big jobs report on Friday. But in terms of not really a busy week of economic data, but we do have big headlines. One on Wednesday, and then the jobs report on Friday will be another one for the market to navigate here.
Okay. Uh, any other thoughts on the major indexes before we take a look at some ETFs, Ken?
No, I just think that again, when you're in the early stages of a rally attempt, whether it's the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq, we did get a good undercut on both of these indexes. More so on the Nasdaq, but the S&P did undercut that low of 55.04 here. So you do need to see shakeouts when the market is bottoming, but then again, you do want to let
Mhm.
the short covering run its course, and then after a few days, if you get a big percentage gain in higher volume, that's your sign that the market may be ready to move here. Now, it could spawn a tradable rally, it could spawn a new bull. We'll
Yeah.
have to see, but encouraged to see the first day of a rally attempt here.
Okay, let's take a look at some ETFs to add more color to the action underneath the surface here today. Here's FXI. This is representative of China, closing basically flat after a morning shakeout here as well, Ken. And so on the daily chart, you can see an undercut from a couple of weeks ago. And on the weekly chart, we see FXI coming down to that 10-week moving average. So pulling back within the context of an uptrend here.
Yeah, hardly moved at all today, so you can barely see that weekly blip on the chart. But two down weeks headed into this week, and again, it's kind of testing that 10-week line right now. So seeing a lot of China stocks, making a key test of support after a nice uptrend. So we'll see if FXI can bounce off the 10-week moving average and start rallying from here. For those looking to get a little bit of a toehold in China, or maybe you haven't participated. A lot of these leaders in China are coming back to a key support level and finding support so far. FXI, I'd like to see it prove itself a little more, but some individual names in China looks like they're making a pretty good test here.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at Alibaba in a bit. But first, let's take a look at XLP. This is consumer staples. So, even on a day where you have the major indexes come well off lows, like you said, a huge comeback for the NASDAQ today, you still are seeing a defensive bent to the market as well, with staples here up 1.5% on the day. So, what is this telling us, Ken?
Well, it's saying that this is still a challenged market because even though we got a powerful a powerful move off lows by the indexes today. Here's your best ETF again: consumer staples, Procter and Gamble, P&G, and Coca-Cola are two big holdings in this ETF. Both of those are in the Dow Jones. Also, Philip Morris and Altria had two big days today. Both of those are two top weighted holdings in the XLP. So, it was interesting. Even though we had a constructive day for the bulls today, we didn't see a lot of growth stocks that have
Mm.
really been, taken apart and beaten down. Hardly saw stocks participate at all. You can see that in FFTY, the ARKK, two growth stock centric ETFs. You can see ARK Innovation was down 2.4% today, so didn't participate. So growth investors didn't see much to like in today's rally, but again, we did see the first day of a rally attempt, so we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, let's go to our stocks that we want to highlight. First, Gilead Sciences. We've been seeing a lot of biotech names on our radar lately, coming up in our screens. So, a lot of these can be both defensive and growth at times. And so, here's a look at Gilead, a strong price performer in 2025, gapped out of a base on earnings and is holding nicely above a rising 50-day line.
Yeah, we had a lot of weakness. We talked about on IBD Live a lot of weakness in the biotech area at the open because it was Friday where Dr. Peter Marks, he's a very high-ranking FDA official in the vaccine area. He had announced his resignation. Disputes with Robert F. Kennedy about vaccine safety, et cetera. So he announced his resignation, and that fueled a sell-off for a lot of biotech stocks early. Gilead did come down, but like a lot of other biotechs in the market, it closed up near its session high here.
Mhm.
So. I like on the weekly chart here. Again, we're talking about first tests of the 10-week moving average. This is a pretty good looking test here. Sometimes I talk a lot about a stock coming down to the 10-week line, not clear it's finding support. It may just be hovering right there, but pretty good instance of support last week for Gilead, and still holding here. So this one looks pretty good. Biotechs overall continue to look good. Like I said, a lot of them stumbled early today, but many recovered, including Gilead. And Gilead, known obviously for their HIV franchise, they also have approved drugs that treat hepatitis B and C. They're involved in oncology. They've done some work with inflammatory diseases like Crohn's disease, things like that. So their pipeline is pretty spread out here. Really like the look of this name finding support at the 10-week line. It's been profitable for as long as I can remember, and pretty good fundamentals here too.
Yeah. Okay, well, shifting gears, let's check in on Alibaba out of China, one of the big tech leaders there, finding support at its 10-week line for the first time since that big breakout. Had a huge start to the year, Ken, along with a lot of other China names, but this one had a move that was arguably one of the most explosive, especially for the big, liquid, well-known names out of China. And not only has it shown technical strength, but also there's a fundamental reason behind the buying as well here with its AI initiatives, with its AI partnership with Apple in China. So talk to me about what you're seeing here.
Yeah, and Alibaba is also obviously they're known for being a huge e-commerce
Yeah.
giant in China, but like you said, they're also a huge cloud computing company, just like Amazon.
Yeah.
So
Amazon of
whether it's
China.
exactly either so they've got a lot of tentacles, and this one does I think it is arguably the institutional
Mm.
quality name in China. There's a lot of more speculative names in China. Many are still profitable. They're just much smaller. I think Alibaba looks really strong here. Nice recovery off lows with the market here. You can see that the huge breakout in very heavy volume, kind of maybe marking a turnaround in fundamentals here. If we swing over to the weekly chart here, uh, And you can see this is maybe a little bit of a turnaround story. Revenue growth is expected to pick up the pace. Revenue only grew 5% in Q4, but it is expected to pick up the pace as our earnings as well here. So, again, another nice orderly first test of the 10-week line. We just have one day of trading for this week, but up near its
Mhm.
high and holding support here. I think this name looks pretty solid as well.
Yeah. First test of the 10-week here. All right, let's round things out with a look at RBA in the retail specialty group. We've got an RRS line blue dot on the weekly chart here. And as this stock has formed a base over the last 5, 6 weeks or so, has held the 10-week line where we've seen a lot of other stocks falling not only below their 50-day lines, but in some cases, the 200-day line as well. So this one is holding tough.
Nice gap up on earnings. You can see back in February, weakness in the market, pulls the stock down to the 50-day moving average. It's finding support here. So still battling near the 100 level. Again, RB stands for Ritchie Brothers. This is a very large car auction um, house that we don't talk a lot about, but this has been in our growth screens off and on for as long as I can remember. Also has the look of a turnaround story here with earnings. You can see revenue and earnings in Q4 turned around, declining growth in Q3, and then the weekly chart here. You can take a look at the fundamentals here. And again, it's not a fundamental powerhouse, but you can see revenue growth is expected to pick up the pace again after Q1. Fund ownership is pretty good here, but technicals again. This is kind of a safe haven area of the market. Investors betting that the car auction
Mm.
business is going to be steady. So it's in a nice setup here. An earnings breakout, testing the 10-week line, holding support. You've got what looks like another flat base taking shape here with a good looking relative strength line. So technically a lot to like here. Fundamentals, okay, but typically we like to
Mhm.
see a little bit stronger growth. But at least in terms of a stock that's got a good technical setup here, I think
Yeah,
RB looks good as well.
absolutely. One that is holding up in a weak and uncertain tape. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ken. As always, we appreciate it.
Okay, you bet.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. That is it from us for today, but we will be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live, investors.com/IBD Live for all the details on that. We will see you there. And then we'll also see you right back here tomorrow after the close.